As the ancient Stoic philosopher Epictetus once said, "You become what you give your attention to." And centuries later, the greatest boxer the world has ever seen, Muhammad Ali, would echo this same timeless truth when he declared, "What you are thinking is what you are becoming." These words aren't poetry. They're not philosophy written to decorate the pages of old books. They are instructions, blueprints, a manual for shaping your destiny, your future, your identity, your life. Today, as you listen to these words, ask yourself one question. What am I thinking about every single day? Because whether you realize it or not, your thoughts are carving the path beneath your feet. The power of a single thought. Look around you. Everything you possess, everything you've achieved, every decision you've ever made, started as a thought. A thought is small, but it's not weak. It is a seed, and if you don't take control of what you plant in your mind, you will harvest a life you never wanted. Muhammad Ali understood this more than most. Before he ever threw a punch in a professional ring, he had already fought thousands of battles in his mind. At just 12 years old, he walked into a small gym in Louisville, not because he thought he was a future champion, but because someone had stolen his bicycle. That simple incident, that single moment, led to a thought. I need to learn how to fight. And that thought turned into a destiny. But Ali didn't stop there. He didn't merely train his muscles, he trained his mind like a warrior. Every day he repeated the words, "I am the greatest," long before the world believed it, long before the world had any reason to believe it. He wasn't bragging, he was programming himself. Because Ali understood a truth most people ignore. If you don't think like the person you want to become, you will never become that person. The science and stoicism behind the quote. You might think this idea is modern, a product of self-help culture, positive thinking, visualization techniques. But no, this truth is ancient. Stoic philosophy, dating back more than 2,300 years, revolves around one central idea. Your mind shapes your reality more than the world does. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations, "Your life is what your thoughts make it." Zeno of Citium, founder of Stoicism, taught that the mind must be trained like an athlete trains his body. Socrates believed thinking properly was the highest form of strength. Aristotle said, "We are what we repeatedly do," meaning your habits, born from your thoughts, turn into your character. Plato went even deeper. The first and greatest victory is to conquer yourself. And where does that self live? In your thoughts. For thousands of years, the greatest thinkers have delivered the same message. Ali simply breathed these ideas into his own era. He transformed ancient wisdom into modern power. He lived the Stoic way, not by reading philosophy, but by becoming living philosophy. Muhammad Ali, a life built by thoughts. Muhammad Ali's life is an example of thought-based transformation like no other. The confidence he created, not inherited. When Ali said, "I am the greatest," he wasn't describing what he was. He was describing what he intended to become. He didn't wait for society to label him a champion. He didn't wait for titles, belts, trophies, or applause. He built the identity in his mind first, because champions are crowned in the ring, but born in the mind. Ali turned confidence into a weapon, not arrogance, but trained, disciplined belief. The fight with Sonny Liston. Before Ali fought Sonny Liston, nearly every boxing analyst predicted Ali would be destroyed. Liston was stronger, he was feared, he was brutal. Ali was young, too skinny, too loud, too playful. But Ali stood in front of the world and declared, "I will shock the world." No physical evidence, no logical reason, just belief, bold and unshakable. And he didn't just defeat Liston, he dismantled him, he dominated him. Because Muhammad Ali didn't enter that ring as a young, inexperienced boxer. He entered as the version of himself he had already created in his mind. The greatest test, his principles. Perhaps the most powerful example of Ali's thought shaping his life came during the Vietnam War. When the U.S. government demanded he fight a war he didn't believe in, Ali refused. He didn't hesitate. He didn't bend. He didn't betray himself. He said, "I have no quarrel with them." In that moment, his thoughts cost him his heavyweight title, millions of dollars, his career, his freedom, his reputation. But he didn't give in. Why? Because he had trained his mind to become a man of conviction, not convenience. Others saw a boxer. Ali saw a principle. And he became the kind of man who follows his principles to the end, no matter the price. That's what thinking with purpose does. It creates character strong enough to stand alone. Stories from ancient Greek thinkers. Ali wasn't alone in this mindset. Let's travel back centuries to ancient Greece, people whose lives prove the truth behind Ali's words. Socrates, the man who thought fearlessly. Socrates wasn't wealthy. He wasn't powerful. He wasn't even liked by the politicians of Athens, but he controlled one thing perfectly: his thoughts. When he was sentenced to death for corrupting the youth, his friends begged him to escape. He refused, because in his mind, living unjustly was worse than dying with honor. Socrates became what he thought, a man unbreakable. Alexander the Great, winning the world in his mind. First, Alexander the Great studied under Aristotle, and from a young age he was taught that greatness begins in the mind. Before he conquered Asia, before he stepped onto the battlefield, Alexander memorized maps. He visualized victory. He imagined himself as a world leader. His empire began as a thought. Zeno of Citium, turning loss into purpose. Zeno was a merchant whose entire ship sank, taking all his wealth with it. It was ruin, disaster, but Zeno thought differently. He said something remarkable. "I made a prosperous voyage when I suffered shipwreck," because that loss led him to philosophy. He built Stoicism from nothing, a philosophy still shaping lives 23 centuries later. His thought shaped his destiny more than fortune ever could. The universal truth, Muhammad Ali, Socrates, Aristotle, Epictetus, Marcus Aurelius, Alexander the Great, Zeno, different eras, different worlds, different challenges, but the same truth. Your thoughts create your life. If you think weakly, you become weak. If you think fearfully, you live afraid. If you think small, you never rise. But if you think with purpose, discipline, courage, ambition, you become a force no one can stop. This is not motivation. It is reality. Applying Ali's wisdom in your own life. Let's bring this from the ring, from ancient Greece, into your life. Ask yourself, 1. What do I think about every morning? Do you wake up with gratitude or with doubt? 2. What do I think about when I fail? Do you see failure as a dead end or as a teacher? 3. What do I think about myself? Do you speak to yourself like a champion or like someone who already lost? Because the thoughts you allow today will become the person you face tomorrow. Muhammad Ali didn't have an easy life. He wasn't born confident. He wasn't born strong. He wasn't born the greatest. He thought himself into all of that. And so can you. The challenge to the listener. Right now, as you hear these words, you have a choice. You can go back to thinking the same thoughts you've always thought and keep getting the same results. Or you can do what Ali did, what Marcus Aurelius did, what Plato taught, what Alexander practiced, what Stoicism preaches. You can train your mind, not someday, not tomorrow, now. Start thinking like the person you want to become. Start believing before you achieve. Start planting the thoughts you want to see grow. Because your destiny is not written by fate, it is written by focus. Your future is not shaped by the world, it is shaped by your thoughts. Your life is not controlled by chance, it is controlled by choice, the choice you make inside your mind. Final message, a closing like a hammer. So remember this, every day you breathe, what you are thinking is what you are becoming. If you think with fear, you will live in fear. If you think with doubt, you will live in doubt. But if you think with courage, with faith, with resilience, with determination, with discipline, with purpose, with vision, then you too can stand like Muhammad Ali, a giant in the arena of life. Not because you were born great, but because you thought yourself into greatness. Your mind is your kingdom. Guard it, train it, shape it, command it, because your future, your identity, your destiny begins with a single thought. Choose your thoughts wisely, because your future is listening.